Well, here we are, breath to breath, with a guest that I'm so excited to introduce, Miss Hannah Went with TruDiagnostic. Hannah Went has a lifelong passion for longevity and breakthrough disruptive technologies that drive radical improvement to the human condition. She attended the University of Kentucky and graduated with a degree in biology. During that time, she had multiple research internships studying cell signaling and cell biology. Bravo. After graduation, she worked for the International Peptide Society as their director of research and content. Through work in integrative medicine industry, Hannah saw an opportunity for methylation-based age diagnostics and started TruDiagnostics in 2020. TruDiagnostics is a company focusing on methylation array-based diagnostic for life extension and preventative healthcare serving functional medicine providers. TruDiagnostic has a commitment to research with over 30 approved clinical trials investigating epigenetic methylation changes of longevity and health interventions. And since TruDiagnostic's inception, they have created one of the largest private epigenetic health databases in the world with over 15,000 patients tested to date. Man, Hannah, thank you so much for being on Breath to Breath.
Yeah, thank you for the great introduction, Perrin. I'm so excited to be here and speak with your audience about all things epigenetics.
Oh my God. Well, literally, I'm going to start off before I get into questions with I have this analogy that I've used to describe epigenetics, and we're going to play a little game with, am I correctly representing epigenetics? So basically, when I was working in a clinic, specifically in a myofunctional clinic, I would talk about how we can change the shape of the face and the longevity of your health basically by starting to change the patterns of where your tongue rests, specifically for improving airway space, creating more development in the maxilla, the upper jaw, which then is connected to the nasal passage. We're complicated, complex, beautifully created, crafted humans. So anyway, the analogy I would give is I had a plant, a fiddle leaf fig in my office, and it was right by a window. And the way that I described it is we have a set amount of genes, a set strand of DNA, and the way that we nurture and care and support or neglect is going to determine how this plant, how we grow. So I just would tell them, just like you can rest your tongue on the roof of your mouth, I can change this plant's direction so that it continues to face the sun, so that it can grow up straight and tall. I can water it, I can talk to it, I can be nurturing to it. And all those things will help in the epigenetic expression. I hope I'm saying that right, but basically help the development of this plant. And just like I can change the direction of where this plant is facing, you also can change the direction of your health based on where your tongue is resting, along with all these other things. Please tell me I kind of had that right.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great example. So
Ah,
bravo.
thank you. Okay, well, now we
Yeah.
can continue because I feel like I have a solid foundation. Well, with that, Hannah, I'm so ecstatic to have you on my show, or on my interview. You are in Kentucky, I'm in South Carolina, and just a little background of how I found you. I like to look for really interesting things on Instagram because that's the best way, the easiest way, the most accessible way I have of basically connecting with other like-minded or just really interesting other humans. And I've been hearing the word epigenetics. I've been, thank goodness, using it correctly. And also just more curious. And when I found your page and started seeing the things that you were posting on, I just knew I wanted to connect with you. So thank you for accepting my offer. And then to get into your side of the story, I love to start off with what is your breadth of origin story? But I was talking to you earlier. What is your biology of origin story? So just tell me a little bit about your background, things that you love, how you followed the pings to get to where you are now, so that we can all kind of just applaud you and love this journey that you've been on.
Absolutely. So originally from north of Dayton, Ohio, in a really small town, ended up coming to Lexington, Kentucky to attend the University of Kentucky. So not too far from home, but far enough where my parents wouldn't visit me every weekend, that
Perfect.
nice sweet spot.
Yes.
And just did a biology undergrad and originally wanted to actually become a genetic counselor, which is a master's program. And work in the field and in hospitals, helping people really look at their genetic risk and do a lot of pre-screening of the sort. So I've always had this interest in genetics and epigenetics. That path didn't work out for me. So instead, right after college, I ended up working for an integrative pharmacy located in Nicholasville, Kentucky as well. So that's where I really got introduced more to this audience, which I absolutely fell in love with. It's a very interesting space to be in, to say the least, where you have people who are focusing more on preventative care rather than treating people who are already sick. So I really like that approach to medicine. And we were always looking at a way to quantify the effects of these products we were making in the pharmacy. We
Yeah.
actually specialized in more peptide molecules and again more integrative uh, um, protocols. So instead of waiting for some 40-year longitudinal trial to come out on a medication, we saw the first paper that was published showing a reversal in these biological age markers in August of 2019. And when that
Wow.
paper came out, everyone we had this light bulb. It was more of, instead of, oh, these biological age clocks or these epigenetic markers are just cool and fun and fascinating, but hey, maybe they have a type of clinical impact and
Yeah.
can actually work to measure a process, that number one risk factor being aging, and then help us reverse it as well through looking at those epigenetic methylation markers. So that's really how I got involved in the space. We didn't want to create our own lab, actually. We really wanted to partner with someone, but talked to several companies, really didn't find a great match, and decided to build the lab in Lexington, Kentucky. So it's really been our biggest asset. And I think looking back, we're very happy that we chose to build the lab and with all of the infrastructure and capabilities that we have.
Well, I thank you for sharing all those things. And what I would say is I think that's what you do when you see a need and the option isn't present. You create it. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I love what you're doing. And so, oh God, I was gonna say I'm so jazzed. How old do I? How I'm brava. Like, what am I? 90 years old. I was just gonna say, rock on, girl. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing. And just curious, how big is the lab? How big is True Diagnostics?
Yeah, so we still have a relatively small team. We ran our first sample in July of 2020.
Mm.
Really, again, created the lab infrastructure since the end of 2019. So it took us, 3 to 4 months to get the lab up and running. I would say we have around 30 employees at the moment,
Yeah,
most of them being our laboratory technicians, which are super valuable to us, running the physical samples. But in terms of, the building and the lab itself, we have about a 20,000 square foot building. So it's relatively large. We specialize in epigenetic methylation testing, but a little side note is that we also do a lot of third-party processing for companies as well, whether it's
nice.
genetics, pharmacogenetics, proteomics, right? So we do some other things, just as a service or an offering.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Okay. I would love your help with just getting some basic definitions before we like
Yes,
carry on so that we're all on the same page. Um,
absolutely.
let's start off peptides. How would you define peptides in a pretty generic, if you can?
Yeah, peptides are essentially just a sequence of
Uh-huh.
uh, amino acids. So, for example, we have a lot of natural peptides occurring in our body, just like insulin, for example. So they are usually, I would say, naturally occurring in the body, and they're almost like a what analogy do I want to use here? They're almost like a Kickstarter, right? They're
Okay.
going to help kickstart specific processes in the body. Um, so that is a simple definition of peptide to
Yeah.
anyone listening if they're not familiar. I would say they're definitely becoming a little bit less exciting. Unfortunately, and a reason we really moved away from the pharmacy-based space is just because they're a little bit harder to get now because of FDA rules and regulations, which is really unfortunate and really sad, but definitely a great intervention and one I'm still a very huge fan of.
And when you thank you for your explanation.
Yes,
A
you're welcome.
follow-up question. When you're talking about harder to get, like harder to extract from samples from the individual, or are you creating these to be ingested, or tell me more about that.
Yeah, usually the peptides that we would create are going to be a subcutaneous injection, actually.
Mm,
But with that being said, there are some oral peptides, intramuscular. There's different ways you can take them depending on the actual one you're using.
yeah,
But I would say the FDA is actually lobbying, making new rules and regulations to define peptides as a different category, really not allowing compounding pharmacies to create them. So they're being harder to just purchase in general. Even healthcare providers are having a really hard time to actually
yeah.
purchase the products and give them to their patients.
Okay, that sounds like a
So
second podcast
yeah.
topic when I have you back, because I will. All right, second one, if we could just go over methylation,
Yes.
I would love your definition.
Yes. So when we talk about DNA methylation, this
Yeah.
is an epigenetic modification. So it falls under this realm of epigenetics, and all DNA methylation means is shutting something off. So if something's methylated, that means you are attaching a small CH3 group, a little molecule, and then you are shutting off the expression of that gene. So you're not getting the transcription, you're not getting the RNA production, you're not getting the protein folding and the phenotypic outcome, sort of that central dogma that I just took you through.
Yeah, and would I be correct in saying that methylation can be positive or negative depending on what it attaches to?
Exactly. That
Okay.
was my next point. And I
Okay.
think
Yes.
anyone talking about epigenetics, that's the first question you should ask because it's crucial.
Yeah.
Usually, when people hear DNA methylation, it gets a really bad rap because they think of the MTHFR gene or the COMT gene.
Yes. Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
so I do like to note that is it doesn't matter, it really just depends on the location because when you really think about it, you want some things to be turned on and you want some things to be turned off. It really is just site specific.
Site-specific methylation. Oh man, okay, I'm writing that down. Site-specific methylation. All right, and then the last thing that I would love to kind of just make sure that we're all on the same page is just genetics versus epigenetics. Maybe a definition of both and how they compare and contrast.
Absolutely. I love this question as well. It's a fundamental
Yeah.
one that again everyone should understand if they want to have a larger conversation about this.
Right.
So we'll start with genetics. Genetics is that baseline DNA sequence, that infrastructure. So your
Got it.
A's and your T's, your C's and your G's, um, those never change. Those are the copies you're getting passed down from mom and dad. They're stagnant.
Right.
When we look at epigenetics, the definition of epi, that Greek prefix, just means above. So think of it as looking above your genetics, these little tags or these little markers, and those can be modified. They are actually in control of, again, turning genes on and turning genes off. So, you probably hear, a lot of things as you're not your DNA or, food is medicine. There's all these little analogies to
Yeah.
describe how you can actually change your genes, right? And that is through epigenetics.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's actually a really great segue into. I was going to ask, have you ever read the book Jaws, or are you familiar with it?
I haven't read the
No?
book, no.
Okay, well, just the reason I'm even bringing it up, because literally
Yes.
it's going into how there have been significant generational changes in the size of our jaw. And it kind of goes into a variety of reasons, one of it being nutrition, one of it being like urbanization versus being in a rural culture.
Sure.
Also, well, actually, a lot of it is nutrition, but also like the
Mhm.
density of the food that we eat. So essentially, I feel like that is epigenetics, maybe in a more um dis disruptive in the negative sense, as then it's decreasing our airway space, it's decreasing the bone density, it's decreasing the strengthening of our muscles. And essentially the change is not the genes, because it's the same. They look at some of the same families, and literally the grandfather, the father, and the grandson. One that, I think was the grandfather has like this very robust jaw. Then
Right.
the son, who really is like 40, has like starting to have like some sleep apnea, starting to have some gen retronathia, basically jaw regression. And then the grandson is just full on like nothing. And when I'm talking about nothing, I mean like no airway space, as in like long face,
Sure.
insufficient airway, those type things. And to me, it's like that is a perfect example of how these changes can occur, but it also can change the other way. I mean, and I was thinking about questions to ask you is how long does it take for epigenetics to actually take hold, or is that basically like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is that impossible to
Sure.
really identify?
Yeah, it's hard. I would say the example you're giving though is a great one. I actually just attended a conference this past weekend in Seattle, Washington, PLMI, Preventative Medicine Lifestyle Institute with Dr. Jeffrey Bland, and Dr. Michael Skinner actually spoke while we were there, and he actually looks at let me get this right, transgenerational epigenetics. So
Oh,
he,
say that again.
yes, transgenerational epigenetics, or translational, you may hear it be called as well. Either way, what he is basically talking about, or what this idea is, you're going to pass epigenetic modifications on to your offspring.
Yeah.
You'll even maybe pass it on to, your great grandchildren if you have children, right? And that is going to be, markers are going to be passed on to you from your parents and from your grandparents, great grandparents, great great grandparents, right? I think the rule of thumb was 3 generations either way. I think we're starting to
Okay.
find out a little bit more that maybe different traits, or again, these different epigenetic methylation markers, depending on the gene, depending on the functionality, may
Yeah.
come from different generations or go back even further. A lot of his research is actually in nutrition, but he's doing a lot of mice models right now. So F0 all the way to F3 generations, and finding out what's being passed down through those epigenetic mechanisms. So it's really interesting. If you've
Yeah.
never read any of his work before, definitely check it out. But that
Say
is
his name again.
Dr. Michael Skinner, just Skinner.
Got it.
Yeah. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe he's out of Washington University.
I will research and look
So
into
I may
this
be
and put
wrong
it
on
into the
that. I can't
notes.
remember.
I was gonna say, I think you remembered a good deal. Well, what I love is just like understanding is things can change. And just like the example I gave of shrinking jaws in mouse, it also can expand. I mean, like you can make positive changes, you can make negative changes. And what I know to be true is through my own health journey. I mean, literally was addicted to Adderall, smoked like crazy, so unhealthy, depression, poor mental health, poor physical health. And it takes lots of small changes, but you can shift. And some of that I believe, well, what I attribute it to is like neuroplasticity. And then additionally, the epigenetics. So could it be fair to say that neuroplasticity is like a cousin to epigenetics, or maybe they're actually at the same family?
Yeah, absolutely. Always changing, right?
Yeah.
Modifying. What's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily evolution, but again, kind of fitting this mold. And I like what you mentioned about your own habits, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't think it takes some big drastic change to modify your epigenetics, right? Again, I mentioned earlier, food is medicine, but even having less stress, moving your body a little bit more. I don't like to say working out or exercising, but moving
Yeah.
your body, breath work, right? Again, better sleep, quality and quantity. So there's simple lifestyle habits that you can even change, and again, make it more of a lifestyle change, a habitual change, rather than doing something dramatic and then maybe stopping it in a week or so, right? So even small changes, getting my point across, can have an effect on those epigenetic mechanisms.
Well, as I say it louder for everyone in the back. Yeah, I love the small, sustainable shifts. Like maybe we even
Yes.
say shifts instead of change, because that's how you start to create things that last. It's not by like making this big, huge swoop. It's about slowly shifting the perspective,
Right.
shifting the habit. Okay, I could get into the esoteric all day long, but I do have some more specific questions. If you're ready.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. All right, I would love to know more about the testing that is it True Diagnostic or Diagnostics?
It's singular, so you got it right the first
As
time.
I say,
Yep.
there's only one.
Diagnostic.
There's only one. All right. So the testing that True Diagnostic does, I know you can basically look at not just chronological age, but your biological age, your epigenetic age, and then I think I have this as like your immune health age.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
dive into all of those. We definitely give you a lot of information. It may be a little
Yeah.
overwhelming, but stick
Yeah.
with me here. I promise I'll explain it all.
Yeah.
So what we are giving you, and we have two products, but to start simple, I'll go over our complete collection. This is the big kahuna, the mother kit. Someone
Yeah.
called it recently. It includes everything we have to offer. So with that complete collection, we're looking at about 850,000 to 900,000 methylation markers. So again, those on and off switches. With
Awesome.
that, I think we have about 10 different reports, and all of those reports have multiple outcomes in them. So with that kit as well, a benefit to getting that complete collection is we look at the gold standard that the literature is using. It's actually run to be a little bit more scientific on an EPIC 850K array called the
Okay.
Actinium array. That is what everyone is using in the literature, in the research. So if anyone comes out with a really fascinating find,
Mm.
we can look at your data and apply that algorithm. So we actually give you new reports every 1 to 2 months or so, updates, upgrades, new findings. Our most recent one, interestingly enough, this is something you might be interested in since you said you were a former smoker.
Uh-huh.
It tell you how much you've smoked or drank across your entire lifetime by looking at methylation markers. So those were the most recent we just added to that complete collection, which is interesting, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I love that. Okay. And
But
then so that's big product number 1.
yes, and I don't know if I answered your question completely, but we go over, an epidemiological review of your biological age. So that's a report that's like 75 pages long. It's like a personalized literature review for you. We do you mentioned the immune report. So we actually look at your overarching biological age. We call your intrinsic biological age, and then your extrinsic biological age. That extrinsic is going to be the age of your immune system, with a little immune cell subset breakdown in that report as well. To finish out our aging suite, there's four aging reports total. The two other reports are going to be the Dunedin pace report. That's our favorite, actually. It's
Yeah.
a pace of aging. You probably saw a lot of my videos on that. I'm doing a little series right now on my page,
Yeah.
but that is more of a current rate of aging. So are you accelerating your aging process, or are you deaccelerating it with the interventions you're doing right now? So you may have a really old overarching biological age, but we need to know if you're going in the right direction, right? With everything you're doing. So it completes
Yeah.
the picture. And is an algorithm we actually licensed from Duke and Columbia University. And our favorite for many, many reasons.
All right, so question, would you have to take more than one test to start to get the trend? Because I guess you need a baseline and then you need to actually do some type of intervention or change it or give yourself a period of time and then take it again to like document the
Correct.
change. Yeah.
Exactly right. And with the complete collection that I'm chatting about right now, that retest window would be about 6 to 12 months.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the other age-related report it includes would be the telomere length report through methylation. Um, Used to be the best biomarker for biological age testing. We're not a huge fan of it anymore just because its predictability is very, very low, and they don't necessarily change in response to intervention. So it's not our favorite, but we definitely still offer it. Now, one thing I want to mention is we created this other product that only includes two reports, the Dunedin pace and the telomere length. So this product is called TruAge Pace. The Dunedin Pace algorithm is so precise, you can actually retest it every 8 to 12 weeks.
Wow.
So that is why we created that other product, because it's going to be much cheaper. And if, like you were talking about, Perrin, if you really wanted to test the efficacy of how something was affecting your age,
Uh-huh.
you could do it every 2 months if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
All right. So just some logistics because this is how crazy I am. I think my whole family is gonna get a true age pace test for Christmas for Christmas.
Yeah, we have to get you tested as well. We'll get
Well, I
everyone
mean, yeah,
tested.
it starts with me. Okay, can we just talk about I think delivery, is it through the blood? Like you get
Yeah,
a prick of blood. That's how you actually collect your sample. That's
correct.
right. And
Yes.
then what's the pricing on this? Like how when you say affordable, tell me what you
Yeah, I would say it's still a little bit more on the expensive side with
Yeah.
the report offerings that we give you, though. We definitely have the most robust reporting platform.
Yeah.
And we use blood because that's the sample type that all of the algorithms have been validated in. So it's just a small
Yeah.
finger prick. On a blood spot card. But the complete collection that will be $4.99. Happy to give a code for you, Perrin. That way, anyone listening, if they want to use it and save some money,
Yeah.
we'll come up with something and give it to you and make sure your
I
listeners.
would say maybe breathe well, be well.
Yeah, let's do it. Breathe
Okay.
well, be well. Absolutely.
Thanks, Hannah. Breathe
Yeah.
well, be well. All right, so the complete kit, the complete collection is $4.99. What about the True Age Pace? I think that is a great
Yeah,
selection.
much cheaper, $229. And then with the discount, you'll even be able, I think, to get it under 200.
Awesome. 100. I love that. Okay, because what I'm specifically thinking for myself, and what I also just wanted to pick your brain on is, have you seen any of your patients or your clients that you've been testing that specifically are working on breath support, breath re-education, using those type of interventions? And what benefits have they seen? Or, I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you what I think would happen. I mean, anywhere from decreased stress to decreased blood pressure to more stabilized nervous system to better sleep, to better resiliency, maybe improved heart rate variability, just to name a few.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
again, talking about lifestyle, I'm a stressed out person in general. I
Oh,
just am.
yeah.
So that is something personally that I want to work on is my breath work, my flow, etc. And I actually used to do, hot yoga for a while and loved it because I felt like it made me find my breath. And I've since haven't been for a while, but I need to get back into it because I've even done some tests on myself and have seen lower aging with that it was a hot yoga around 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And I was actually doing a little study review just as it relates to stress in particular before
Yes.
I hopped on the call with you yet last night. And there are so many studies on stress and epigenetic aging, and then a couple that actually incorporate breath work specifically in that to lower the stress. Um, to give you a little bit of insight into one of the algorithms, that intrinsic epigenetic age algorithm I was talking about,
Yeah.
they look at 353 methylation markers there.
Um,
About 85 of those methylation markers are on or near glucocorticoid receptor elements.
okay.
So we know that that clock is basically measuring, partly stress. Stress has a huge role in it. So we know by lowering those stress levels, you are absolutely going to be able to see a lower aging signal.
Mm,
So it's very interesting, and we're huge fans of meditation for that reason.
yeah.
Um, you know, reading, writing, walking, running, whatever does it for you to lower those stress levels. There's a study in particular I want to bring up with you, though.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be called Exploring Epigenetic Age in Response to Intensive Relaxing Training. And it was just a pilot study, essentially, to slow down the biological aging process. But what they looked at were a control group, and
Yeah.
then they looked at patients with myocardial infarction, and they did a relaxing response. So basically, the intro of this paper talks about these relaxing responses, which can be anything from listening to music to just practicing breath work and meditation. So again, a something you can do at home, right? It doesn't cost anything unless you're downloading an app or kind of following along, maybe something on YouTube. So very cheap intervention, something that's very simple. They trained 4 days in a hospital basically to for the study advisors to make sure they were doing this correctly.
Yeah.
And then they did 60 days of this relaxation response. And basically through that time and that follow-up, they saw a lower DNA methylation age. They
Wow.
saw better telomerase activation. So again, helping keeping those telomeres nice and healthy. And they did the methylation with the they did leukocyte telomere length testing as well, and saw great correlations with that. So that was the one study that I was saying, Perrin, it definitely applies directly to you because they're doing more of the relaxation response, where a lot of them were just purely more stress based.
Right.
looking at glucocorticoid signaling, but yeah,
Yeah,
the
well,
breath work is something you can't ignore.
I was gonna say, if only there was someone that offered breathwork support. Ah.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
again, that is something that makes TruDiagnostic really different as well. Is we work with so many cool, amazing functional medicine providers that they're testing their patients and doing what they're passionate about, right? What interventions they want to use. So we're gathering data on this. We're gathering data longitudinally on what works and what doesn't work. So again, if you have clients who want to do this test before and after, and they're seeing a great response, that's your data. That's something you can even do and perform a study on, right? If you get some good results, which I'm absolutely sure that you would.
No, well, and I'm always looking for ways that I can quantify the quality of your life. And I know in some of the other episodes that I listened to, side note, Hannah is a wealth of knowledge, and there are several podcasts that she's been on. So I did my homework so that I could have my stuff together. But I love how you've talked about the lifespan versus the health span. And to
Mhm.
me, that's basically what the epigenetic testing is doing, is it's starting to measure the quantity of your quality. And it's starting to put more of these tangibles into almost like this untouchable fantasy. Not fantasy, but it's just basically giving you something that you can hold on to, that you can see, that you can test, that you can start to put some kind of value on how well you feel or how poor you feel. And what I just know to be true is, like, even though I always laugh, this is the oldest I've ever been, but I
Mhm.
feel so much better than I did like 10 years ago, which is fascinating to me. Why? What is it? I mean, the things inside of me are still there. It's just I'm taking better care of them. I'm nurturing them. I'm loving them. And in turn, they're loving and they are supporting me in return. So yeah, health, health span versus lifespan. I would love just your perspective on that and how epigenetics plays a role.
Yeah, so just like you described, you said I feel much better than I ever have, right? And I'm 10 years older. I think
Yeah.
that's epigenetics in itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to start using this if you don't mind, instead of change, shifted,
Oh,
right? You
yes.
did the,
Absolutely. Shift
ex-
away.
yeah, you shifted the expression of those genes. So you're getting more clarity. You're regulating your methylation, right? Because
Oh,
again, it's going to be dependent on that position. So you're regulating it more, right? You
right.
really want to even everything out, and everyone's going to be a little bit different, but you have to find out what works for you. So health span versus lifespan. When we talk about lifespan, that is the years we've lived, right? How long we've been alive. You're the oldest you've ever been. That's never going to change. And that's great. Um, you know, people typically want to live a long time. I will tell you right now, I do not want to live a long time if I am not able to walk to the bathroom when I'm 80 years old, right? Or go grab my mail or play with my grandchildren or a puppy, you know. I want to be able to do those things. So health span is not only how long it's not how long you're living, it's about how you feel during those years, especially as you become older chronologically. I want to be able to do what I was doing at 60 when I'm 80. And this is an important conversation I sometimes get into with healthcare providers and wish people would talk about this more. Is if someone is testing their biological aging process or their methylation markers, there's a reason, right? They want to be younger. They want to have the functionality, or there is a why behind it. So I
Right.
often try and guide our providers to ask their patients their why. Again, why are you wanting to invest in your health? Do you want to sell a business, right? Are you an entrepreneur? Do you want to see, again, your grandchildren grow up? If you have grandchildren, do you want to maybe start a new business? Who knows? But I think it comes down to someone's why, which again is where you can get really personable and understand them, even just as a person, a little bit more. Which should add to your quality of life, right? Interacting and whatnot, instead of just quantity, which is more of that lifespan, right? Just reaching a goal and checking off, a checklist or different things to get done instead of actually living. So yeah, that's, my 2 cents on it.
Oh, Hannah, I think that is so profound, and it's really it's not the years. Like, I mean, who cares about how many years you've been on here? Like, what do you remember? What brings you joy? What do you actually want more of? And how do you keep living a life that is full and robust and full of the things that light you up and the things that bring you joy, and then in return that bring other people joy and the connection in the community and all those things. And one of the areas that I just wanted to like kind of touch on, not necessarily a question, but more of a topic, is I love how epigenetics is sometimes talking about the fullest expression of your genes. And with my background being in speech pathology, we would talk a lot about receptive language versus expressive language. Receptive being receiving, expressive giving out in the world. And I just I don't know. To me, there's a beauty of epigenetics because it is your body saying this is where we started. Doesn't mean where we have to end. And it
Exactly.
can go this direction or it can go this direction, but you get to decide, and it's based on your behaviors, it is based on your habits, it's based on your mindset, it's based on your why, it's based on the ways that you start to look more internally from an inside out, not from an outside in. So we don't need all this reception, receive from the things that are not helping us. We need the expression from the inside out, our genes basically deciding this is going to help us. And it starts, I think, with your why. It starts with your breath. It starts with calming your mind and having this full whole body experience that is integrating mind, body, spirit, science, everything,
Right. Yeah.
everything. And
I love that. Yeah.
oh, well,
It's great. And I have some people come to me as well who say, I was heading this direction. I was,
mhm,
my quality of life was basically very bad. And I said, okay, I can keep going that way, or I can turn my life around. And
yeah,
they said, I took this test and decided to go the other way, right? I chose the other path. I want a better quality of life. I, used to not be able to run on the treadmill for more than 10 minutes. And now I can do, an hour, or just little things like that, even, right? This, the epigenetics acts as a motivation, or something almost, that they can touch, that they can look at and really make a definitive change, because it's quantifying something, as, again, that number one risk factor being age.
right. Well, and just a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go so you can enjoy the quality of this day. But I also really appreciate the idea of that epigenetics is more of like a spectrum, whereas like traditional blood test, traditional hormone test is a snapshot. And so there's almost like a dynamic life to exploring epigenetics versus just where you are right now. So like checking, and also I'm on this health journey where I'm getting my blood work done. I'm starting to get hormones tested because I just want to know what is going on inside of me, because I'm curious and I want to know and I want to help and I want to be able to fully express my genes from the inside out. So what I think is so fascinating is epigenetics, honestly, in my opinion, is the direction that we need to go, because that is how we're going to start to see what is not just where are we right now, but what is the projection and what is the direction and the pattern, and how do we start to change that?
Yes, definitely. And touching on your health journey, I'm on my own health journey too, right? I'm
Say
still
more, say more.
Yeah, I still, feel relatively young chronologically, but I just started seeing a functional healthcare provider this year. Got my labs drawn for the first time, my bloods.
So many
Um,
bloods, so
yeah, so
many.
many bloods, all these different panels. And I'm actually doing my follow-ups, I think, next week or the following week, whenever I can get in and, go and do it.
Yeah.
So I'm on, I think everyone's on this health journey, this drive to become better, or a lot of people are, and or starting to turn that way, because again, it's about preventative measurements.
Mm,
It is a whole lot easier to prevent than to intervene when that disease type or, phenotype diagnosis has already occurred. So we even encourage people to start testing as young as possible. I think the youngest we've ever tested someone was, I think, 8 or 9 years old,
wow.
chronologically. We don't
Yeah.
get many, but that is the youngest.
Yeah.
So I do encourage people start as early as possible, right? Because again, it's going to help with that health span. Hopefully lifespan too, right? They go hand in hand, but again, more about that quality. So I think you're exactly right in saying these epigenetic patterns are giving us hints all across the board from where we've been to where we're going to where we might be by inferring different risk statuses as well. So we're really excited about all of the reports coming out in the future where even epigenetics can be predictors of some of those blood-based biomarkers you and I are getting tested. Some inflammation markers,
Yeah.
CRP, IL-6. It's endless. It's really the future. So I'm really excited about it.
Oh, well, and now you have a friend in breathwork, and I have a friend in
Yes.
epigenetics. So I would love that. Tell us how can people find you? What are the things that you're excited about? I want to make sure that you have time and space to really share the things that are just lighting you up.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate you giving me that time. So
Yeah.
the reason or how Perrin found me is I actually decided to start my own account on
Yeah.
Instagram to talk about epigenetics because I can't really find someone who's doing that, right? Again, there's
Because
this
there isn't.
yeah.
That's why I was like, Hannah.
And so glad you reached out. I was so excited because
Yeah.
it's still a really new account. So
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous still about it all, but it's coming along and content creation is not easy. For people who think it's just, again, making a graphic or setting up. There's a lot of behind the scenes work to it. So definitely check me out on there to anyone listening. It's just at everything epigenetics. I'll, keep you up to date with the latest, greatest, all the research behind what is showing to express our patterns in more favorable ways. And then TruDiagnostic as well. Everything epigenetics is unaffiliated with TruDiagnostic. I want to make sure that's very clear. But TruDiagnostic, I do believe we are a superior epigenetic methylation testing lab, and that is what we really specialize in. So if you're interested, we'll take care of you. We'll send you a kit with parents discount. You'll save money as
Yeah,
well.
with breathe well. That's BREATHE. Well, be well.
Yep. So we'll get that posted, make sure everyone knows the details. And other than that, we have a lot of research going on at True Diagnostic too, which I think is what I'm so excited about. So we're involved in about 30 clinical trials, give or take a couple at any given time,
Yeah.
looking at hormone replacement therapy, bariatric surgery, some peptides. We're looking at some senolytic combinations like dasatinib and quercetin, hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy. There's
Well,
a list of things we're looking at. So if you're interested in that data as well, we can tell you, hey, maybe do this or try this first, or maybe a different dosing, etc. So again, myself included in True Diagnostic, we're here to support any of you on your health journey, especially if you want to start testing.
yeah. Oh, well, that's some great information. And I feel like I see or I hear lots of podcasts, they end like with something cute. So here's my little ending. I was going to
Yes.
say, as we finish up, I just want to ask you the question, what does a deep breath mean to you?
Yes. Ooh, I like that question.
Thank you. I just made it up.
Ooh. um, a deep breath means to me, again, it takes me instantly back to when I was doing hot yoga.
Mhm.
Just like pure bliss, right? Where it's your mind's not racing, you're not thinking of anything. It's just your the mind body connection, right? I always liked in hot yoga too, and we would lay down or sit, and then it was like a hand on the heart, and you would feel your breath too, almost, right? And a hand on the stomach, so you can feel them like in sync together. So that's what it means to me. I definitely need to work on that more though, and that's why I have you now, Perrin.
Well, as I say, I mean, I don't know how we could finish with anything better than pure bliss. Pure bliss. Well, Hannah went. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, for the information and the content that you're pushing out there. That I think is the biggest gift that we can give, is just to help share what we know with others. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your gifts. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.